What if the key to dissolving every challenge was not outside you, but within? The consciousness code reveals a secret truth. When you shift your awareness, reality itself bends in your favor. Crack this code, and problems dissolve like morning mist. Since the first spark of awareness flickered in the human mind, seekers have wondered about the hidden architecture of reality. Why do some effortlessly flow through life while others are entangled in endless struggle? Why do problems appear so insurmountable yet vanish for those who seem to know? The truth is this: consciousness is the master key. It is not merely your thoughts, your emotions, or your intentions, but the vast field of awareness from which all experience flows. You are not separate from this field. You are this field. Every challenge you face, every obstacle that rises, every pattern that repeats itself is not an external enemy, but a mirror reflecting the state of your consciousness. When you shift the state of your awareness, the reflection must change. Just as a mirror cannot resist a new image, life cannot resist the frequency of consciousness you embody. Problems dissolve not because the external world bends unnaturally, but because you unlock the natural harmony already present. The ancients understood this. Mystics, sages, and awakened masters spoke in riddles and metaphors about the same truth. You are both the code and the coder. You are the observer and the observed. Crack the consciousness code, and you awaken to a life where flow replaces friction, synchronicity replaces struggle, and clarity replaces confusion. This audiobook is not theory, but initiation. Through these 30 chapters, you will uncover practices, stories, and timeless wisdom designed to awaken the power hidden within you. Each teaching is a key, each practice a doorway. Together they form the code. And once unlocked, nothing, no fear, no doubt, no limitation can withstand the radiance of your awakened consciousness. Chapter 1. The Mirror Principle. Life reflects consciousness. In the heart of an ancient city, nestled among temples and stone pathways, lived a philosopher named Arik. To the villagers, he was a man of quiet demeanor, often found by the reflecting pool just outside the temple gates. His life seemed effortless, while others around him struggled with crops, quarrels, and endless worries. Many whispered that Arik was blessed by the gods, yet he would always smile and say, "Life is a mirror, and I only polish my reflection." One afternoon, a young farmer named Taran approached Arik with frustration heavy in his heart. His land bore little harvest despite his labor, his ox had fallen ill, and his marriage was strained by endless poverty. "Why do the gods curse me?" Taran demanded. "Why do my efforts bear no fruit while yours flow with ease?" Arik did not answer with words at first. He led Taran to the still waters of the reflecting pool. "Look," he said softly, "what do you see?" Taran gazed at his reflection, but his face was contorted with anger, eyes narrowed, lips tight. "I see a tired man." "Indeed," Arik replied, "and what does the water show you but the face you carry? The pool cannot smile back when you scowl at it. The water does not curse you, it simply reflects what you bring." Taran frowned deeper, but the seed of understanding stirred. "Are you saying my fields, my marriage, my life are the same? They reflect what I carry inside?" Arik nodded. "The world is a mirror polished by consciousness. Whatever you bring to it, fear, scarcity, resentment, will echo back to you as circumstance. When you bring gratitude, clarity, and love, it cannot help but return the same." The lesson lingered with Taran. That night, instead of cursing the soil, he whispered words of thanks for the small sprouts that had survived the drought. He softened toward his wife, choosing to see her patience instead of her worry. Over weeks, subtle changes arose. His ox regained strength. The harvest, though not perfect, improved, and most of all, the heaviness inside him lightened, replaced by a quiet faith. The mirror principle is not superstition but a law woven into the fabric of existence. Life is consciousness expressed outward. If your inner state is clouded with doubt, the reflection will show obstacles. If your awareness radiates abundance, opportunities appear as though summoned. Just as a mirror never resists your smile, reality does not resist your vibration. But here lies the challenge. Most people gaze at the reflection and attempt to alter it directly. They shout at the mirror to change its image. They rearrange external circumstances, forgetting that the true source lies in what they project. The sage's wisdom was this: polish your own awareness, and the reflection must follow. The practice is simple, though not always easy. Each morning, before the demands of the world rise, pause before your inner mirror. Ask, what am I projecting today? Fear or faith? Scarcity or sufficiency? Anger or love? Whatever answer arises is not judgment but guidance. Adjust the inner state and trust the reflection to follow. You are not trapped by circumstances, you are entranced by reflections. Break the trance by tending to consciousness first, and the world becomes your polished pool. Problems dissolve, not because the external world shifts at your command, but because you cease projecting them in the first place. And so Arek's wisdom echoes through time. Polish the mirror within, and life itself becomes radiant. Chapter 2. The Observer Effect: How Awareness Shapes Reality. In a distant mountain monastery, there lived a young seeker named Chiron. His days were spent sweeping stone courtyards, carrying water, and tending to the fire of the meditation hall. Yet his heart burned with questions. "Why," he asked the elder monk, "does life respond so strangely to what I think or fear? Sometimes what I imagine arrives at my door as though I called it. Other times, no matter how hard I try, nothing changes." The elder, Master Shen, led Chiron into a dim chamber lit only by candles. At the center sat a bowl of sand. "Watch," the master whispered. He plucked a single grain and let it fall. The sand rippled outward in tiny waves. "The universe is like this bowl. Every thought, every emotion, every intention sends ripples through the field. Awareness itself shapes reality." "But how?" Chiron asked. Master Shen smiled. "Do you know the story of the unseen flame?" He told of a villager who carried an unlit lantern through the dark woods. Though the flame inside was absent, every step he took created fear. Shadows stretched longer, sounds grew sharper, but when the lantern was lit, the same woods appeared gentle, their shapes familiar, their paths clear. "The woods did not change," Shen explained. "The observer did. His awareness became light, and the world reflected it." Science would later echo this truth through what is now called the observer effect. The act of observation influences the outcome. Mystics had always known it. Awareness is not passive, it is participatory. To see is to shape, to expect is to invite, to focus is to summon. Chiron began practicing this teaching. Each time he feared failure, he caught himself and shifted his gaze. Instead of dwelling on what might collapse, he imagined success gently unfolding. When loneliness struck, he pictured companions arriving. Slowly, the monastery itself seemed to respond. His duties became easier, friendships deepened, and even the abbot took notice of his presence. The observer effect is not about controlling every detail. It is about recognizing that consciousness is never neutral. Your awareness, like light, influences whatever it touches. To gaze with fear is to empower fear. To gaze with love is to magnify love. This practice begins with vigilance. Notice the quality of your attention. Where does your awareness linger? Do you replay problems, feeding them with observation, or do you illuminate possibilities, strengthening them with focus? Awareness is the brush with which you paint reality. Choose your strokes wisely. Master Shen's final lesson to Chiron was simple. You are not a prisoner of circumstance. You are the observer who shapes it. Wherever you look, reality bends. Look wisely. Chapter 3. Shifting States, From Problem to Possibility. In the bustling harbor town of Salara lived a merchant named Leona. Her days were filled with trade, bargaining, and endless accounts. Yet despite her success, she felt trapped by constant problems. Shipments delayed, competitors undercutting prices, storms that ruined cargo. She wore her stress like heavy chains, until one evening an old sailor named Doran told her a story that changed everything. He spoke of the sea. To the fearful sailor, every wave is a threat. To the skilled navigator, the same wave is opportunity. The sea does not change, only the state of the sailor does. Leona pondered this truth. Problems, she realized, are not fixed realities, but perceptions shaped by state of mind. In one state, everything appears insurmountable. In another, the same situation reveals hidden openings. That night, instead of collapsing in worry, she sat in silence. She imagined stepping into a different state, calm, assured, open. Slowly, the weight of her problems seemed to lift. The storms that had felt like curses revealed themselves as teachers, pushing her to diversify her routes. The rival merchants who undercut her prices forced her to innovate, discovering goods none had thought to sell. Problems dissolved not by vanishing, but by transforming into possibilities through her new state of being. This is the power of shifting states. Consciousness is not rigid. Like water, it takes the shape of whatever vessel you choose. When you dwell in fear, the world reflects threats. When you inhabit curiosity, the same world reveals opportunities. The state you choose is the lens through which reality is filtered. The practice is this: when faced with difficulty, pause and ask, "What state am I in?" Then choose again. Step into gratitude, into curiosity, into courage. Shift the state, and the problem dissolves into possibility. For Leona, the harbor town did not change. Ships still faced storms, merchants still competed, and accounts still demanded reckoning. But within her, something shifted. She became the calm navigator, and every wave carried her forward. And so the teaching stands. Problems are not obstacles, but reflections of your state. Change the state, and the obstacle reveals itself as a doorway. Chapter 4. The Field of Infinite Potential. Long before clocks ticked and maps were drawn, sages spoke of a vast invisible field, a dimension not bound by matter but woven of possibility. They called it the Great Loom, the place where thoughts became threads, and reality the tapestry. Most forgot this truth, blinded by appearances, yet a few remembered. Among them was a scholar named Helena. Helena lived in a city famed for its libraries, yet no matter how many scrolls she read or lectures she attended, life felt heavy. She struggled with loneliness, her work unrecognized, her health faltering. One evening, restless under a star-filled sky, she wandered to the edge of the desert and met an old traveler resting by a fire. His eyes were luminous, his presence radiant with peace. "You search for answers in books," the traveler said, "but the real library lies within. You are surrounded by a field of infinite potential. Your problem is not lack of opportunity, but lack of recognition. You keep staring at the tapestry already woven, instead of the threads waiting to be chosen." Helena frowned. "What do you mean?" The traveler tossed a handful of sand into the fire. Sparks leapt upward, each a glowing fragment that rose and vanished. Each spark is a possibility, none more real than the other until your awareness anchors it. You believe only what you see, the woven pattern before you, but reality is alive with infinite sparks, waiting for your attention to call them forth. Helena pondered his words deeply. That night, instead of lamenting her life, she lay awake imagining herself radiant with health, her work recognized, her days filled with companionship. She did not grasp or strain, she simply entered the feeling as though already real. In her dreams, she walked through a luminous field where countless doorways shimmered. She chose one and stepped through. In the weeks that followed, subtle shifts appeared. A colleague praised her research unexpectedly. A friend invited her to a gathering where she met kindred spirits. Her energy began to return. She realized that the old traveler had spoken truth. The field of infinite potential was not theory but reality. Her consciousness had tuned to new threads, and the tapestry of her life responded. The teaching is this: what you perceive as fixed reality is but one thread among infinite others. Consciousness is the loom, attention the shuttle, and feeling the dye that colors the thread. When you focus only on problems, you weave more of the same. But when you enter the field of potential with openness, you summon threads unseen, and new realities take form. The practice is deceptively simple. Before sleep or in moments of stillness, close your eyes and imagine yourself standing in a vast field of glowing threads. Each represents a possible life, each shimmering with different colors. Ask yourself, which thread resonates with my heart? Step into it in imagination. Feel it as though already real. Trust that consciousness has already woven the first stitch. Life is not a fixed tapestry, but an ever-changing masterpiece. When you remember that the field of infinite potential surrounds you always, problems lose their weight. For in every moment, infinite doorways await. And what you choose to enter becomes the world you live. Chapter 5. The Frequency of Now. In a valley where rivers met, there lived a clockmaker named Elias. He built exquisite instruments that measured time with precision, yet he himself lived trapped by hours. Every decision, every worry was wrapped in the past he regretted or the future he feared. He often muttered, "Tomorrow will bring relief," or "If only yesterday had been different." Yet joy eluded him. One evening, while repairing an ancient sundial brought from distant lands, Elias noticed something unusual. The dial bore no numbers for tomorrow or yesterday, only a single symbol at the center, radiating outward like the sun. Curious, he sought out the merchant who had sold it. The merchant, a woman with eyes bright as dawn, explained, "This sundial does not measure time as men do. It points only to now, for now is the only frequency that exists. Yesterday and tomorrow are illusions your mind chases. Reality, creation, power, they all vibrate in the present." Her words unsettled him. That night, unable to sleep, Elias wandered into the fields. He sat beneath the stars and listened, not to memory or expectation, but to the stillness of the moment. For the first time he noticed the hum of crickets, the rhythm of his breath, the weight of the earth beneath him. A deep peace descended. He realized he had been living everywhere but here. From then on, Elias began practicing presence. When his mind wandered to mistakes of the past, he gently returned to the breath. When fear of the future arose, he reminded himself, the only place of power is now. As he tuned to the frequency of now, problems began dissolving. Worries about tomorrow lost their hold. Regrets of yesterday faded. In the present, solutions often appeared naturally, like lanterns lighting one step at a time. The truth is this: consciousness operates like a tuning fork. When you vibrate in the frequency of now, alignment occurs. Fear lives in tomorrow, guilt lives in yesterday, but peace, creativity, and clarity, these dwell only in the present. The frequency of now is the channel where the field of infinite potential becomes accessible. The practice: pause often throughout the day, close your eyes and feel your breath. Say inwardly, "Only this moment is real. I am here and here is enough." Let the chatter of past and future fade into silence. In this stillness, problems lose weight and possibilities bloom. Elias's clocks still ticked, but he no longer lived by them. His life became a sundial pointing always to the present, radiant with the sun of now. Chapter 6. The Myth of Struggle. In the crowded streets of a river town lived Mira, a weaver of cloth. From dawn till dusk she labored at her loom, convinced that only through struggle could she earn her keep. Her hands were blistered, her back bent, her spirit heavy. She told herself daily, life is hard. To survive is to suffer. And so struggle became her constant companion. One day, as she carried her bundles of cloth to market, she noticed an old man fishing by the river. Unlike her, he exerted little effort. He simply cast his line, hummed a tune, and soon pulled up fish with ease. Mira scoffed. "You make it look too simple. Surely fortune favors you unfairly?" The man laughed gently. "Fortune favors flow, not force. The river feeds those who align with its current. Struggle is a myth created by those who row against the stream." Mira frowned, unconvinced. That night, however, his words echoed in her dreams. She saw herself at her loom, threads tangled, her hands pulling harder and harder until the cloth unraveled. Then she saw herself releasing the tension, letting the shuttle glide smoothly, and the fabric blossomed effortlessly beneath her touch. She awoke trembling, realizing that her struggle was not with life, but with herself. From then on, she approached her loom differently. She breathed deeply before each session, letting tension fall away. She whispered, "I align with ease." To her surprise, the cloth seemed to weave itself. She produced more in less time, her body no longer burdened. At market, her creations sold quickly, admired for their lightness and beauty. She began to see that struggle had never been necessary. It had been her belief. The myth of struggle binds many. We are taught that suffering is noble, that progress demands pain, that ease is laziness. Yet consciousness responds not to strain, but to alignment. Problems persist when we grip too tightly, dissolve when we flow with the natural current of life. The practice is to notice where in your life you are rowing upstream. Ask, am I forcing this? Do I believe struggle is the only way? Then soften, release the need to control every outcome. Align with the current of consciousness, trusting it to carry you. Mira discovered that life was never against her. The river had always flowed in her favor. She had only mistaken resistance for virtue. With ease came abundance. With trust came freedom. And so the myth of struggle dissolved, leaving only the truth. Life is not meant to be wrestled, but embraced. Chapter 7. The Trap of Identification. In a bustling coastal town where fishermen called to one another at dawn and merchants haggled in crowded markets, there lived a woman named Seraphine. She was known not for her laughter or kindness, but for the heavy mask she wore without knowing. Whenever someone asked her who she was, she would list the roles she played. Daughter of a stern father, widow of a lost husband, trader of modest goods. These labels became her identity, stitched tightly into her very being. Yet deep inside, Seraphine felt restless, like a bird in a cage. She longed for freedom, though she could not name what she sought. Her life, she thought, was defined by circumstances, by the roles others had given her. One evening, as she walked along the shoreline, she met an old mystic sitting by the water. His gaze was fixed not on the waves, but on the horizon, as though seeing beyond the visible. Seraphine, weary from her day, asked, "Why do I feel so small, so trapped by who I am?" The mystic turned to her gently. "Tell me, child, who are you?" She replied, as always, "I am Seraphine, a widow, a trader, a daughter." The mystic smiled. "You are none of these. You are the awareness in which widowhood, trade, and family appear. When you mistake the mask for your face, you suffer. When you remember that you are the space behind the mask, you are free." That night, Seraphine dreamed of standing before a great mirror. Each time she declared, "I am a widow." A heavy cloak draped her shoulders. Each time she said, "I am poor," chains bound her wrists, but when she whispered, "I am the awareness that watches," the cloaks fell away, the chains dissolved. She saw herself shining, luminous and unbound. The trap of identification is subtle but powerful. When you believe you are your roles, your failures, even your successes, you imprison yourself in fragile cages. Circumstances shift like tides, roles rise and fade like clouds, but the awareness that observes them is eternal. Problems arise because we identify with the mask. I am this problem. I am this failure. I am this sorrow. Yet the truth is that problems are experiences, not identity. You are the sky, not the passing storms. The practice is simple but transformative. Each time you feel trapped by a circumstance, pause and say inwardly, "This is something I experience, not who I am." Repeat softly, "I am the awareness behind it all." Like Seraphine, you will feel the chains dissolve. In time, Seraphine no longer introduced herself by roles or labels. She simply smiled, radiant and free. And those who met her felt an expansive peace, as if meeting the sky itself, for she had escaped the trap of identification and remembered her true essence. Chapter 8: Breaking the Cycle of Repetition. In a small mountain village lived a craftsman named Rowan, whose life seemed cursed with endless repetition. Year after year, his business faltered at the same season. Year after year, his relationships crumbled in the same pattern. He would whisper bitterly, "Why does life punish me with the same story over and over?" One winter, after yet another failure, Rowan retreated to the forest. There he met a hermit named Althea, who lived in a simple hut among the pines. Rowan poured out his grief, describing the cycles that haunted him. Althea listened patiently and then led him to a frozen stream. "Strike the ice," she said. Rowan hit the surface with a stick, and the same cracks formed in the same patterns again and again. Althea spoke softly. "The water beneath is always flowing, but the ice remembers." So too does your mind. Your repeated patterns are frozen memories, replaying themselves until you choose to melt them. Her words pierced his heart. For the first time, Rowan saw that life was not punishing him, but mirroring his unhealed beliefs. Each repeated failure was a script written long ago, playing endlessly until he chose a new line. That night, Rowan sat by the fire in Althea's hut. She taught him a practice. Before sleep, recall the day. Where did you repeat the same thought, the same fear, the same response? See it clearly, then imagine it dissolving like ice in spring. Replace it with a new vision, a new belief. Plant this in the soil of your subconscious and watch how the cycle breaks. Rowan practiced faithfully. When he felt fear of loss in business, he replaced it with images of thriving trade. When loneliness whispered that all bonds must fail, he replaced it with visions of deep, lasting connection. Slowly, his life shifted. The same season that once brought failure now brought abundance. The cycle had been broken. The truth is this: repetition is not fate, but programming. Your subconscious mind replays what it has known, like a musician repeating the same song, but you hold the power to choose a new melody. Awareness melts the ice and new patterns flow. The practice: notice the cycles in your life. Ask what belief sustains this pattern. Then, in stillness, envision a new belief, a new response. Plant it with conviction, and the cycle dissolves. Rowan returned to his village renewed. His craft prospered, his relationships deepened, and the whispers of punishment ceased. He understood that life was not repeating itself. It was waiting for him to choose differently. Chapter 9: The Power of Neutrality. In the kingdom of Doria, disputes flared constantly. Merchants quarreled over trade, nobles schemed for power, and even villagers carried grudges that lasted generations. Yet in the center of the capital stood a temple known for its peace. Within it lived a woman named Illyra, whose calm presence dissolved conflict wherever she went. It was said that kings sought her counsel when anger consumed them, and farmers brought their disputes to her instead of the courts. Her secret was not force nor cleverness, but neutrality. She lived as the still point between opposites. One day, a soldier stormed into the temple, furious from betrayal by his commander. "Tell me, wise one," he demanded, "should I take revenge or swallow my shame?" Illyra listened quietly, then guided him to a great gong in the temple. She struck it once. The sound resonated deep and powerful. Then she struck it again with greater force, and the sound turned harsh, jarring. Finally, she placed her hand gently on the gong and said, "Do you hear that?" The soldier listened. There was no sound at all. "This silence," she whispered back, "is neutrality. It holds the power to end noise. When you are neutral, problems dissolve because they cannot feed on your reaction. Anger feeds anger, fear feeds fear, but neutrality ends the cycle." The soldier wept, realizing that his choice was not between revenge and shame, but between reaction and neutrality. He chose stillness, and his heart healed. Neutrality is not indifference. It is the state of non-resistance, where you see clearly without judgment. In neutrality, you are not pulled by the extremes of desire or fear. Problems cannot latch on to neutrality, for they depend on your reaction to survive. The practice. When faced with conflict, pause. Breathe deeply and enter the silence within. Imagine yourself as the still gong, unshaken by noise. From this neutral place, respond, not from anger or fear, but from clarity. Illyra's temple remained a sanctuary because she embodied neutrality. Those who entered found their own storms quieting, their conflicts dissolving. For in the power of neutrality lies the greatest freedom, the ability to meet life without resistance, and in doing so, to dissolve its problems instantly. Chapter 10. Seeing Beyond Appearances. In a marketplace brimming with noise, where stalls overflowed with spices, cloth, and trinkets, there lived a boy named Cassian. His eyes were sharp, but his vision was shallow. He judged quickly. The ragged beggar was useless, the gilded merchant was wise, the stormy sky meant disaster. He lived enslaved to appearances, never pausing to see beyond the surface. One day, an old wanderer approached him with a bundle of weathered scrolls. "What do you see?" the man asked, holding up the bundle. Cassian scoffed. "Trash fit for the fire." The wanderer only smiled and unrolled the parchment, revealing drawings of stars, maps of hidden lands, and formulas predicting eclipses. Cassian gasped. What had looked worthless was a treasure beyond price. The wanderer spoke gently. "Most are blinded by appearances. They see only the mask, never the soul. Problems look like walls, yet behind them are doorways. Strangers appear as burdens, yet within them are teachers. When you judge only by appearances, you miss the truth concealed beneath." Cassian followed the wanderer for many days, learning to look with new eyes. When they encountered a farmer cursing his barren field, Cassian at first saw only failure, but the wanderer pointed deeper. The soil rests, preparing for a richer harvest. What seems like loss is renewal. When they met a widow dressed in grief, Cassian pitied her fragility, yet the wanderer said, "She carries strength unseen. Her sorrow waters compassion that will heal many." Slowly, Cassian began to see differently. He realized that life itself wore disguises, presenting blessings as burdens, opportunities as obstacles, wisdom as madness. To live by appearances was to be fooled by illusion. The practice of seeing beyond appearances begins with stillness. When you encounter a problem, do not rush to judge it. Pause and ask, what deeper truth might this conceal? What blessing hides behind this mask? Shift your gaze from the surface to the essence. Cassian returned to the marketplace transformed. He no longer dismissed the beggar as useless. He recognized the man's stories as repositories of wisdom. He no longer envied the gilded merchant. He saw his wealth bound by chains of fear. And when storm clouds gathered, Cassian smiled, for he had learned that rain nourishes even when skies grow dark. Problems dissolve not by changing appearances, but by piercing through them. Once you see beyond the mask, you realize there was no problem at all, only a gift disguised as challenge. Chapter 11. The Energy of Attention. In a quiet village where fields stretched golden under the sun, there lived a healer named Leora. Her gift was not herbs nor potions, but attention. People would sit with her, pour out their troubles, and somehow leave lighter, clearer, healed. She explained it simply. What you give attention grows. What you withdraw attention from fades. One day, a troubled man named Yorn came to her. He complained endlessly of his aches, his poverty, his failures. Leora listened, but then asked, "Where is your attention?" Yorn frowned. "On my pain, of course." She nodded. "Then you feed it daily. You water weeds and wonder why they thrive." She handed him a small pot with 2 seedlings, one thorny weed, one fragile flower. Each morning give your attention to one. Water it, speak to it, nurture it. Yorn obeyed. At first, he fed the weed, fascinated by its rapid growth. Soon, thorns covered the pot. The flower wilted. He returned to Leora ashamed. She smiled and said, "Now tend the flower." Reluctantly he did. Within weeks, the flower blossomed while the weed shrank. Yorn understood at last. His problems had flourished because he fed them with attention. His dreams had withered because he ignored them. Attention was energy, and wherever it flowed, life followed. The teaching is this: consciousness is not passive. Your gaze is a sunbeam. Place it on shadows, and shadows grow darker. Place it on light, and light expands. Problems persist because we obsess over them, turning them into monuments. When we redirect attention to gratitude, possibility, or vision, problems shrink, dissolving into irrelevance. The practice is to become a gardener of attention. Notice where your mind lingers. When caught in worry, gently redirect. When trapped in complaint, shift toward appreciation. When dwelling on lack, move attention to abundance already present. Do this not with force, but with kindness, as if guiding a child. Yorn's life changed. His pains no longer ruled him, for he stopped feeding them with endless focus. His poverty lifted as he gave attention to small opportunities instead of failures. His dreams, once neglected, blossomed like the flower he nurtured. And so, the truth resounds. Attention is creation. Whatever you tend becomes your world. Choose wisely, for attention is the most precious currency of consciousness. Chapter 12. Rewriting Inner Scripts. In the city of Marovel, where theaters lined the squares and actors performed nightly, there lived a playwright named Dorian. Though he penned brilliant stories for the stage, his own life felt trapped in tragedy. Again and again he found himself betrayed by friends, rejected by patrons, and bound by despair. One evening, after his play was met with silence instead of applause, he sat alone backstage, muttering, "Why do I always live the same unhappy script?" An old actress overheard him. She sat beside him and whispered a sound, "Because you are reciting lines written long ago. You are both actor and author, yet you keep repeating the same play." Dorian frowned. "But I cannot change the past." The actress shook her head. "You cannot change what happened, but you can rewrite the script it left within you." That night, Dorian dreamt he was on stage. Instead of lines from his own play, he found himself repeating harsh words spoken to him as a child, bitter judgments from failed romances, endless scenes of loss. He realized his life had been a performance of scripts he never chose consciously. Upon waking, he began a new practice. Each evening he wrote not for the stage, but for himself. He crafted scripts of triumph, dialogues of love, acts of abundance. He wrote them in the present tense. I am celebrated. I am loved. I am free. Then, before sleep, he recited them as if already true. Slowly, his waking life shifted. Patrons began to notice him. Friends returned. His despair melted into new possibility. The truth is this: your subconscious mind holds scripts written in childhood, in trauma, in repetition. These inner scripts dictate the roles you play. Unless rewritten, they perform themselves endlessly, creating the same outcomes. But the power to edit lies always in your hands. The practice: when you notice a recurring problem, trace it to its script. What line plays in your mind? I am unworthy. I always fail. No one supports me. Write a new script, one aligned with your truth. Repeat it daily, especially before sleep. Let your subconscious become a stage for empowerment rather than tragedy. Dorian's plays began to flourish, not just on stage, but in life. He realized he was not condemned to repeat inherited lines. He was the playwright of his destiny, the author of his own story. And so the wisdom endures. Rewrite the inner script, and the play of life transforms. Chapter 13. The Alchemy of Perception. In the village of Oronel, where golden wheat stretched across the horizon and bells rang each dawn, there lived a glassmaker named Silas. His craft was admired throughout the region, for he could shape molten fire into crystal beauty. Yet despite his talent, Silas was plagued by despair. Every small setback appeared to him as ruin. A crack in a vase meant failure. A day without sales meant poverty was near. He believed life itself conspired against him. One evening, an old woman entered his shop. She asked to buy a broken goblet sitting by the door. Silas frowned. This is worthless. It cracked during cooling. I should have discarded it. The woman smiled and held it up to the light. Through the fracture, the sunlight refracted into brilliant colors, scattering rainbows across the walls. Worthless, she whispered. Ah, Lord. This is more beautiful than perfection. It reveals light in ways flawless glass cannot. Her words pierced him. He realized in that moment that his despair was not caused by circumstance but perception. He saw only failure where beauty lived unseen. That night, Silas dreamed of walking through a hall of mirrors. Each mirror reflected his life differently. In one, he saw endless disappointment. In another, the same events shone as blessings. He woke, trembling, understanding that perception was the true alchemy. The world itself was neutral, like molten glass, but his perception colored it into poison or gold. He began to practice. When a sale failed, instead of despairing, he asked, "What light might this reveal?" When a vase cracked, he displayed it proudly, inviting others to see its hidden radiance. To his astonishment, people loved these flawed creations more than the perfect ones. His shop flourished, and so did his spirit. The teaching is this: perception transforms reality. Problems are not fixed, but lenses. Through one lens, they are curses. Through another, blessings. You cannot always change events, but you can always transmute your perception. The practice: when faced with challenge, pause and ask, what other meaning could this hold? What gift lies hidden here? Like Silas, you may discover that fractures refract greater light than flawless glass. The alchemy of perception dissolves problems by revealing their secret gold. For in truth, life is neither for nor against you. It simply reflects the meaning you assign. Chapter 14. Unlocking the Subconscious Gateways. Far across the desert sands stood a monastery carved into the cliffs. Travelers spoke of it in hushed tones, for within its walls monks practiced arts forgotten by time. Among these arts was the mastery of subconscious gateways, the hidden doors between waking mind and deeper knowing. A wanderer named Eleanor arrived at the monastery after years of restless searching. Though she had studied many teachings, her life remained unchanged. "I know so much," she confessed to the abbot, "yet my problems persist. Knowledge fills my mind, but transformation eludes me." The abbot led her to a great wooden door sealed with iron locks. "This is like your mind," he explained. "The conscious self gathers knowledge, but the subconscious is the chamber of power. Unless the gateways are opened, wisdom cannot enter to reshape your life." Eleanor asked how to open them. The abbot smiled and pointed to the twilight hours. "When you drift between waking and sleep, the locks soften. This is when your suggestions, your visions, your prayers pass through into the deeper mind. Guard this doorway well, for whatever enters here becomes your reality." That night, Eleanor lay awake at the edge of sleep. Instead of replaying her worries, she whispered words of abundance. She visualized herself walking in gardens of peace, speaking confidently, embracing joy. For the first time, she felt these images sinking deep, as though carried through hidden gates. In the days that followed, she noticed subtle changes. Confidence stirred where doubt had lived. Unexpected opportunities appeared. Her problems no longer clung so tightly. She understood then that she had unlocked the true gateway of transformation. The teaching is this: the subconscious mind is fertile soil. The moments before sleep and after waking are the gateways when the soil is softest. Whatever seeds you plant then, fear or faith, despair or hope, will take root. Problems persist because you unknowingly plant them nightly, rehearsing worries until they grow into reality. But by consciously tending these gateways, you dissolve problems at their root. The practice: each night as you drift toward sleep, plant 3 seeds of intention. Speak them softly as though already real. I am whole, I am guided, I am abundant. Visualize their truth and let them sink into your subconscious. Each morning upon waking, repeat them before thoughts of yesterday return. In this way, you guard the gateways and direct your deeper mind. Eleanor left the monastery years later, radiant and unburdened. Her life had transformed not by collecting knowledge, but by mastering the hidden doorways within. For she had learned that unlocking the subconscious gateways dissolves problems before they even appear. Chapter 15. Emotional Transmutation. In a bustling city by the sea lived a merchant named Corvin. Outwardly he prospered, but inwardly he was plagued by storms of emotion. Anger flared when deals faltered, sorrow weighed him after betrayals, fear stalked him at night. He believed these emotions were enemies to be conquered, yet the more he fought them, the stronger they grew. One evening, a shipwreck survivor named Lyra arrived at his door. She had lost everything: family, wealth, home, yet her presence was serene, her eyes shining with quiet strength. Corvin asked in disbelief, "How can you carry such peace after such loss?" Lyra replied, "Because I learned the alchemy of transmutation. Emotions are not enemies, but raw energy. When you resist them, they poison you. When you embrace them, they transform into power." She told him of the night the storm took her ship. Terror gripped her, but instead of drowning in fear, she breathed deeply into it, feeling its energy surge through her body. She whispered, "This is life force disguised as fear." In that surrender, her terror shifted into clarity, guiding her to cling to debris until rescue came. Her sorrow for her family became compassion for others who suffered. Her anger became fuel for resilience. Corvin listened, trembling. He realized his endless battles with emotions had only chained him. He had never thought to embrace them as allies. He began practicing Lyra's teaching. When anger flared, he sat with it, breathing into its heat until it cooled into strength. When sorrow came, he let it wash through him until it crystallized into wisdom. When fear visited, he held it gently until it melted into courage. Slowly his storms became rivers flowing into new power. The truth is this: emotions are energy in motion. They are neutral until judged. When resisted, they stagnate into poison. When transmuted, they become fuel for transformation. Problems dissolve when the energy of fear, anger, or sorrow is reclaimed as strength, clarity, or compassion. The practice: each time emotion arises, pause. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe into the feeling and say, "This is energy. I welcome it. I transmute it into power." Visualize the raw energy shifting into golden light, flowing through you as strength. Corvin's life changed. His business thrived not because problems vanished, but because he met them with energy transmuted from his former storms. He no longer feared emotions. He saw them as treasures in disguise, and so the wisdom endures. Emotional transmutation is the philosopher's stone of consciousness. With it, problems dissolve into possibilities, and suffering becomes fuel for awakening. Chapter 16: The Harmony of Alignment. In the lush valley of Elowin, where orchards flourished and rivers sang softly over stones, there lived a carpenter named Jareth. His hands were strong, his skills unmatched, yet his days were filled with endless frustration. Doors he built would not fit their frames, beams split under his chisel, and no matter how he labored, mistakes multiplied. He cursed his tools, his wood, and even himself. One morning, as he wrestled with a warped plank, an old traveler stopped at his workshop. The man observed Jareth's struggle and said, "You fight against the grain. Wood has its own song. To force it is to break it. To listen is to align." Jareth frowned. "Wood is lifeless matter. It bends only when I command." The traveler only smiled and ran his hand over the plank. "Feel it," he whispered. "It carries memory of wind, sun, and soil. When you work with its grain, it yields. When you resist, it resists you." That night, Jareth dreamed of standing in a forest where each tree hummed a note. When he pressed his ear to the trunks, he heard a chorus, each song distinct yet blending into harmony. He woke with new curiosity. The next day, instead of forcing the wood, he listened. He studied the grain, felt its direction, and adjusted his tools accordingly. To his astonishment, the work flowed. Doors fit seamlessly, beams held firm. The struggle dissolved. He realized then that life was no different. When he forced outcomes, resisted timing, or ignored his intuition, problems multiplied. But when he aligned with the natural rhythm of events, everything unfolded smoothly. Alignment is the secret harmony of consciousness. Problems often appear not because life resists us, but because we resist life. Like rowing against a current, we exhaust ourselves, mistaking effort for virtue. Yet when we align with inner truth, outer conditions fall into place with surprising ease. The practice is this: when confronted by difficulty, pause and ask, "Am I forcing or flowing? Am I aligned with my inner knowing or resisting it?" Feel into the rhythm beneath the problem. Often the solution lies not in harder effort, but in adjusting to the current. Jareth became renowned not only for his skill, but for the peace he radiated. People said his furniture carried harmony itself, as though the wood had sung through his hands. And Jareth knew the truth. It was not force, but alignment that dissolved the struggle. So it is with all of us. When you live in harmony with your deepest self, life bends in your favor, and problems melt like ice in spring. Chapter 17: The Path of Least Resistance. In the highlands of Norevia, a shepherd named Amara tended her flocks. Each day she struggled to lead them across steep, rocky terrain. The sheep scattered, her body ached, and her patience wore thin. She scolded them, pulled at them, tried to force them over cliffs where grass was sparse. "This is the only way," she told herself, even as exhaustion grew. One day, an elder shepherd watched her with kind eyes. "Why do you drive them up the rocks?" he asked. Amara sighed. Because the shortest path to the meadow lies here. The elder pointed to a gentle slope winding around the mountain. The sheep will follow water, shade, and softness. The meadow is reached more swiftly through ease than through struggle. Skeptical, Amara tried his advice. To her surprise, the sheep moved willingly along the gentle path, reaching the meadow with little effort. She realized then that resistance had been her own creation. She had mistaken difficulty for necessity, never seeing that life had already carved an easier way. That night she reflected on her life beyond the flock. She thought of times she had forced friendships that soured, clung to failing ventures, pushed herself through doors clearly closed. Each time she had chosen resistance over flow, and each time she had mistaken pain for progress. The truth revealed itself. The path of least resistance is not laziness but wisdom. It is the natural flow of consciousness guiding you toward alignment. Problems dissolve when you stop forcing the locked door and notice the open gate beside it. The practice is to cultivate sensitivity. When you encounter obstacles, ask, is this resistance born of growth or of misalignment? Growth challenges you, but it feels expansive, alive. Misalignment drains, contracts, and closes. Follow the path that expands, even if it appears longer. It often carries you more swiftly to the meadow. Amara's life transformed. She learned to sense the current in all things. Whether in her flocks, her relationships, or her choices, she became a guide for others, teaching them to listen for the river of ease flowing beneath struggle. And so the wisdom remains. Resistance is the weight we carry when we forget the river already runs. Let go, step into the current, and it will carry you where you belong. Chapter 18. The Language of Synchronicity. In the city of Marisol, where markets bustled by day and lanterns lit the night, there lived a poet named Kalin. Though his verses were beautiful, he lived in doubt, unsure of his path. Does life even care? He asked himself often. He felt small, unseen, wandering without compass. One evening, weary from writing, he strolled through the streets. A stranger brushed past him, dropping a slip of parchment. Kalin picked it up. Written on it were the words, "Trust the unfolding." He froze, stunned by the message. The next day, as he pondered quitting his craft, a bird perched on his windowsill, chirping the exact rhythm of a line he had just written. Soon after, a patron appeared unexpectedly, offering to sponsor his work. Kalin realized something extraordinary. Life was speaking to him in synchronicities. Each coincidence was not chance, but language, a whisper from the deeper field of consciousness guiding his steps. At first he doubted, but as the signs multiplied, he began to listen. When he wondered whether to attend a gathering, a song played in the street with lyrics answering his question. When he hesitated about a decision, a book fell open to the very passage he needed. The world itself had become his teacher. The teaching is this: synchronicity is the language of consciousness. It is how the unseen field communicates when the rational mind grows deaf. Problems persist when we ignore these whispers, believing only in logic. But when we attend to synchronicity, we realize solutions are already being offered. The practice is to cultivate awareness. Each day, notice repeating patterns, symbols, words, or encounters that carry meaning. Do not dismiss them as accident. Ask, what is life showing me here? Trust that the universe weaves signs not randomly, but with purpose. Kalin surrendered to this language. He wrote verses inspired by synchronicities, and his poetry touched the hearts of thousands. He no longer doubted his path, for he had learned to read the signs. And so the wisdom endures. Synchronicity is not coincidence, but conversation. When you listen, problems dissolve, for guidance flows constantly through the fabric of your days. Life has always been speaking to you, only now you know how to hear. Chapter 19. Living Beyond Fear. In the coastal town of Vera, storms came suddenly. Fishermen feared the black clouds that gathered without warning, and merchants shuttered their shops at the first sign of wind. Among them was a man named Lucian, whose heart trembled even on calm days. He feared storms, he feared poverty, he feared the judgment of others. His life became a cage of avoidance, each day smaller than the last. One evening, while returning home, Lucien saw an old woman walking slowly along the shore as lightning cracked above the sea. She carried no umbrella, no coat, yet her steps were steady. Lucien ran to her. "Do you not fear the storm?" he shouted. The woman smiled, her hair wild in the wind. "Why should I fear what is natural? Fear makes storms within us larger than the storms outside." That night, Lucien dreamed he was standing on the shore, waves towering above him. He tried to run, but the waves chased him endlessly. Then he stopped, turned, and faced them. To his amazement, the waves dissolved into mist the moment he no longer fled. He woke in awe, realizing fear is not an enemy, but a phantom magnified by flight. The next day, Lucien tried something new. Instead of avoiding his fears, he faced them gently. He spoke in public, though his voice trembled. He sailed out despite storm clouds, feeling the wind but not fleeing from it. Each time he met his fear directly, it shrank. His life, once narrow, widened into freedom. The truth is this: fear is not reality, but anticipation of pain. It feeds on resistance, growing stronger the more you run. When faced directly with awareness, it dissolves like mist in sunlight. Problems that appear insurmountable are often nothing more than fears dressed as facts. The practice is this: when fear arises, pause. Place your hand upon your heart and whisper, "I see you, but you do not rule me." Breathe into the fear, letting it expand fully in your awareness. Then, instead of resisting, invite it to show you its lesson. Often you will discover that fear conceals the very doorway you need to walk through. Lucien lived differently after that. He became known not for his avoidance, but for his courage. And yet his courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. The storms still came to Vera, but Lucien no longer hid from them. He walked the shore like the old woman, steady and free. To live beyond fear is not to banish it, but to see through it. Once you realize that fear is only a shadow cast by your own mind, problems dissolve in the light of your courage. Chapter 20: The Conscious Choice Point. In the bustling city of Cairo, where merchants filled the streets and bells marked each passing hour, there lived a young scholar named Mirelle. She studied philosophy, astronomy, and the laws of nature, yet her life remained tangled in confusion. She felt pulled by every opinion, every influence, every passing thought. Decisions weighed on her like stones. "What if I choose wrongly?" she often whispered to herself. And so she delayed, drifting through life at the mercy of circumstance. One day she visited a sage who lived at the edge of the city. The sage listened patiently and then brought her to a fork in the forest path. "Which way will you go?" he asked. Mirelle hesitated. The sage smiled. "Every moment is such a fork. You stand always at the point of choice. To delay is also to choose, though not consciously." That night Mirelle dreamed of a vast hall lined with countless doors. Some glowed with warmth, others loomed dark. She stood frozen, afraid to move. Then she noticed a shimmering thread of light connecting her heart to one door. When she walked through it, she felt peace. She awoke with new clarity. Choice is not about right or wrong, but about alignment with truth. The next morning, when offered a position she feared might fail, she paused. Instead of overthinking, she asked, "What feels aligned? What expands me?" She chose not from fear, but from inner resonance. And though the outcome was uncertain, she felt a freedom she had never known. The teaching is this: every moment contains a choice point. Problems persist because we unconsciously choose from fear, habit, or doubt. When you pause and choose consciously, you redirect the course of your reality. The power lies not in the magnitude of the choice, but in the awareness with which it is made. The practice, when facing a decision, place one hand on your chest and breathe deeply. Ask, does this choice contract me or expand me? Does it align with my deepest self or with my fear? Choose what aligns regardless of appearances. Over time, these small, conscious choices weave a life of clarity. Mirelle became known as a woman of decisive presence. Not all her choices led to ease, yet each brought her deeper into authenticity. She discovered that the true danger was not choosing wrongly, but living unconsciously. The conscious choice point is the compass of transformation. When you step into it with awareness, problems dissolve because you realize you are not trapped. You are choosing, and in choice lies freedom. Chapter 21. The Dream Detective's Investigation. In the village of Aramore, where fog often rolled in from the river, there lived a librarian named Elias. He was quiet, meticulous, and curious, but his nights tormented him. Each morning he woke from dreams that seemed meaningless, chasing shadows, wandering through endless corridors, speaking to strangers with unknown faces. He dismissed them as nonsense until his life began echoing their symbols. He would dream of locked doors, then find obstacles in his work. He would dream of bridges collapsing, then lose friendships the next week. Troubled, he sought counsel from an old dream interpreter named Solène. She listened carefully and said, "Your dreams are not chaos, but codes. They reveal the state of your subconscious. If you learn to read them, you will see the problems of your waking life already scripted in your sleep. Become a detective of your dreams, and you will solve them before they manifest." That night, Elias paid close attention. He dreamed again of wandering a corridor, but this time he noticed a key glowing faintly in his hand. He awoke and wrote it down. Days later, when a project at the library seemed blocked, he remembered the key. He paused, reconsidered his approach, and found a solution he had overlooked. The dream had prepared him. Over weeks, Elias learned to record his dreams at dawn, noting not just events, but feelings, colors, and symbols. He discovered patterns, doors symbolizing opportunity, water reflecting emotion, flight representing freedom. He realized his subconscious was mapping his life in symbols, offering guidance he had ignored. The teaching is this: dreams are mirrors of the subconscious. Problems first appear there in symbolic form before they crystallize in waking life. By decoding these messages, you can address challenges at their root, dissolving them before they grow. The practice: keep a journal by your bed. Upon waking, write everything you recall, even fragments. Over time, patterns will emerge. Ask, what might this symbol represent in my waking life? What message does my deeper self offer me? Treat each dream as a clue in the investigation of your consciousness. Elias became a dream detective, piecing together the codes of his inner world. He found that by listening, he could resolve fears, release old patterns, and even receive creative ideas. Problems no longer surprised him. He saw their symbols long before they arrived. And so the wisdom endures. The subconscious speaks through dreams. To ignore them is to walk blind. To investigate them is to live with foresight. Problems dissolve when you heed the clues whispered each night by your sleeping mind. Chapter 22. Time as an Illusion. In the town of Nareth, where towers rose against the sky and bells marked each passing hour, there lived a watchmaker named Calidore. He was known for his unmatched precision, crafting clocks that measured even the smallest fraction of time. Yet though his work was admired, Calidore himself was tormented. He felt enslaved by his own creations. Each tick reminded him of his failures, each tolling bell a reminder of what he had not yet achieved. He whispered often, "Time is my master, and I am its prisoner." One evening, as he sat surrounded by half-finished clocks, an old traveler entered his shop. She carried no possessions save for a single candle flickering in her hand. Calidor asked irritably, "Do you need a clock? I can make one that will mark your hours with perfection." The woman smiled and said, I have no need for hours. I live by the eternal flame, not by the ticking hand." Intrigued, Calidor followed her into the night. They sat together beneath the stars. "Look," she said, pointing to the constellations. "These lights have burned for thousands of years, yet they exist in the same eternal now. Time is but a measure of change, not a master. You are not bound by it, only by your belief in it." That night, Calidor dreamed of his workshop. He saw his clocks melt and dissolve, their hands vanishing, their gears turning to smoke. In their place, a vast field stretched out, timeless and radiant. He felt a deep peace he had never known, free of the whip of minutes and hours. When he awoke, he began to live differently. He still crafted clocks, but he no longer measured his worth by their ticking. He discovered that when he acted from presence, time seemed to bend. Moments of inspiration stretched endlessly, while fears that once lingered passed quickly. Problems that had once felt urgent lost their grip, as he realized that the only true moment was now. The truth is this: time is an illusion of the mind. Past and future exist only in memory and imagination. The present is eternal, the only reality. Problems dissolve when you stop projecting them into tomorrow or dragging them from yesterday. In the now, they have no power. The practice: each time you feel overwhelmed by time, pause. Say inwardly, "Only this moment exists. I am here, and here is enough." Notice how the pressure softens, how urgency fades, how clarity arises. In the eternal now, solutions reveal themselves naturally. Calidor became known as more than a watchmaker. He was called a teacher of timelessness. Those who visited his shop no longer left only with clocks, but with the deeper wisdom that they were not prisoners of time, but eternal beings living in the present. And so the wisdom endures. When you step into the illusion of time, problems multiply. When you live in the eternal now, they dissolve into the quiet rhythm of presence. Chapter 23. Parallel Possibilities. In a small village surrounded by misty hills, there lived a woman named Thalia. She often wondered what her life might have been if she had chosen differently, if she had married another, if she had traveled to the city, if she had followed her childhood dream of painting instead of working the fields. She carried regret like a heavy cloak, always whispering, "I chose wrongly." One night, sitting by the fire, she dozed into a dream. She found herself walking through a vast hall lined with mirrors. In each mirror, she saw a different version of herself, one clothed in rich silks, one painting in a gallery, one traveling distant lands, one tending a family of children. She touched the mirrors in awe, realizing these were all her, living in parallel streams of possibility. An old guide appeared beside her, luminous and calm. "Do you see?" he asked. "Every choice creates a new branch. You regret the path you took, yet all paths exist. You are not bound to one. You can draw wisdom from every version, for each possibility lives within the field." Thalia awoke, trembling with wonder. From then on, when she felt regret, she closed her eyes and entered the hall of mirrors. She would meet the version of herself who had taken the other path, feel her wisdom, and bring it into her present life. Slowly, her regret dissolved. She began to paint again, not as a lost dream, but as a parallel possibility, merging into her current reality. The teaching is this: you are not limited to one timeline. The field of consciousness holds infinite versions of you, each exploring different outcomes. Problems appear when you believe you are trapped in one fate, but when you open to parallel possibilities, you realize you can integrate wisdom and energy from every path. The practice: when regret or limitation arises, close your eyes. Imagine a hall of mirrors. See the version of yourself who has already lived the outcome you desire. Step into their reflection. Feel their confidence, their wisdom, their experience flowing into you. Return to waking life carrying this integration. Thalia no longer feared her choices. She lived joyfully, knowing she could draw from every possibility. Villagers marveled at her serenity, for she had discovered that regret is an illusion. All paths exist, and the wisdom of each is available in the eternal now. And so the wisdom remains. Life is not a single road, but a vast web of possibilities. Problems dissolve when you realize you are not bound. You are free to align with any stream of potential. Chapter 24. The Reality Revision Workshop. In the city of Kareth lived a teacher named Adrian. Though admired by his students, he was haunted by memories of failure. A harsh childhood, mistakes in youth, betrayals in love. These played in his mind endlessly, coloring every decision. He believed the past was carved in stone, unchangeable, condemning him to relive its wounds. One evening, after dismissing his class, Adrian lingered in the empty hall. He fell asleep at his desk and dreamed he was in a workshop filled with tools of light, hammers of gold, chisels of crystal, brushes dipped in flame. A voice whispered, "This is the Reality Revision Workshop. Here you may reshape the past, not as denial, but as healing." He picked up a chisel and saw before him the memory of his father's scorn. With trembling hands, he carved into the memory until it shifted. The harsh words became lessons of resilience. The shame that once scarred him transformed into strength. He then painted over the memory of betrayal with compassion, seeing not only pain but the wisdom it had given him. Adrian awoke astonished. Could the past be revised? He began practicing. Each night he recalled a painful memory. Instead of reliving it in sorrow, he imagined reshaping it, giving it new meaning. Slowly, he noticed changes in his waking life. The bitterness that had once ruled him softened. His relationships improved. Opportunities opened, no longer blocked by the weight of old wounds. The truth is this: the past is not fixed stone but living memory. The subconscious does not distinguish between what happened and what you imagine with feeling. When you revise a memory, you change its influence. Problems rooted in the past dissolve, replaced by new meaning that empowers rather than imprisons. The practice: before sleep, choose one memory that burdens you. Close your eyes and relive it, but this time, imagine it unfolding with understanding and healing. See the lesson, the strength, the gift within it. Repeat this nightly until the memory feels transformed. Adrian became a new man. His students noticed his radiance, his freedom, his compassion. He had discovered that the past is not a prison, but a workshop. And so he taught them, problems do not come from what happened, but from the meaning you still carry. Revise the meaning and you revise your life. And so the wisdom endures. The past is clay, not stone. You are the sculptor. When you reshape its form, the chains of yesterday dissolve, and you step into tomorrow unburdened. Chapter 25. The Gratitude Amplification Chamber. In the hills of Koreth lived a miller named Davin. Though his grain was fine and his mill well kept, he carried with him constant dissatisfaction. He muttered at dawn about the weather, complained at noon about the weight of his work, and sighed at night about what he lacked. The villagers noticed how gloom seemed to hang over him like a shadow. His fields produced little, his business stagnated, and even his family grew weary of his complaints. One autumn, while journeying to the market, Davin met a wandering minstrel who carried only a flute and a small satchel. Despite his meager possessions, the man radiated joy. He sang as he walked, and flowers seemed to brighten as he passed. Curious, Davin asked, "How can you be so content when you have so little?" The minstrel smiled. I live inside the chamber of gratitude. Each night before I sleep, I recall 3 blessings from the day. No matter how small, I let them fill my heart until they echo through me like music. Gratitude multiplies itself just as a song gains power when sung in harmony. My life feels abundant not because of what I own, but because of how I see. That night, Davin scoffed, yet he could not forget the minstrel's words. He tried the practice reluctantly. He remembered the warmth of the bread he had eaten, the smile of his daughter, and the roof that sheltered him. As he whispered thanks, he felt a faint warmth stir within him. He repeated the ritual each night, and over time, the warmth grew into radiance. His complaints lessened, replaced by appreciation. He noticed opportunities he had once ignored, neighbors offering help, new markets for his grain, beauty in the ordinary. His mill prospered, his fields grew fuller, and his home filled with laughter. The teaching is this: gratitude amplifies everything it touches. Problems dissolve not by erasing difficulty, but by shifting the frequency of perception. When you dwell in complaint, you multiply lack. When you dwell in gratitude, you multiply abundance. The practice: each evening before surrendering to sleep, recall 3 specific blessings of the day. Speak them aloud or write them down. Let each one expand within your chest until it fills you completely. In the morning, carry this resonance into your first thoughts. Over time, your life will echo with the frequency of gratitude. Davin became known not as the miller who complained, but as the man who smiled. Villagers felt uplifted in his presence, for gratitude had transformed him. His chamber of gloom had become a chamber of light, and so the wisdom endures. Gratitude is not an afterthought, but a force. When you live within it, every blessing multiplies, every problem shrinks, and life itself begins to sing. Chapter 26. The Infinite Possibility Portal. In the city of Lumerus, a young healer named Kale felt trapped. Though he served the sick with diligence, his mind was filled with limitation. "This is all I will ever be," he sighed, "a servant of small means, bound by the narrow path I walk." He looked at the wealthy merchants, the adventurers, the scholars, and he envied their freedom. To him, possibility was a locked gate, barred and unreachable. One night, weary from work, Kale fell into a dream. He stood before a massive archway shimmering with light. Above it were inscribed the words, "All paths exist." Beyond the arch stretched countless roads, each leading to a different version of his life. One where he studied as a physician, one where he traveled the seas, one where he lived as a teacher, one where he discovered riches. A figure cloaked in silver approached and said, "This is the infinite possibility portal. Your belief in limitation keeps you outside. But the truth is this: every possibility already exists within the field of consciousness. To step through is simply to believe." Kale hesitated. "How do I choose?" The figure replied, "Follow the resonance of your heart. The portal opens to what you dare to feel as real." When Kale awoke, he realized his despair had been a prison of perception. He began experimenting. Each night he imagined walking through the archway, choosing a path aligned with his deepest longing. Some nights he chose the path of healing greatness, other nights of travel, other nights of teaching. Soon, opportunities emerged in waking life. Mentors appeared, doors opened, friendships guided him to new ventures. His sense of limitation dissolved. The teaching is this: the universe is an infinite portal, not a single road. Problems appear permanent when you believe you are trapped. Yet every moment, infinite versions of your life exist. By aligning your consciousness with one, you step into its reality. The practice: when you feel bound by limitation, close your eyes and visualize a glowing archway. See countless paths stretching beyond it. Ask your heart which one calls you. Step through in imagination, feel it as though real, and carry that resonance into your day. The portal responds not to doubt, but to belief. Kael no longer lived in envy. He realized he was not confined to one destiny, but could align with infinite streams of possibility. He became known as a healer who carried not only remedies for the body, but hope for the spirit. And so the wisdom endures. Life is a portal of endless paths. When you release limitation, problems dissolve into choice, and possibility becomes infinite. Chapter 27. The Energy Signature Designer. In the Valley of Seren, a painter named Mirek struggled. His art was skillful, yet galleries ignored him, patrons passed by, and he felt invisible. "Why does no one see me?" he asked bitterly. Despite his efforts, his work failed to resonate. One evening he met an old woman who studied the unseen. She listened to his despair and said, "You are seen, but not for what you wish." Every being carries an energy signature, a vibration woven from thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. It is this signature that life responds to. Your art reflects your doubt, and so the world mirrors doubt back to you. Change your signature and your reality changes. Mirek resisted. "I cannot control what others feel." The woman shook her head. "You cannot control them, but you can design the energy you broadcast. Life echoes your resonance." That night, Mirek dreamed of standing in a vast chamber filled with glowing colors. Each hue represented a frequency: joy, sorrow, love, fear, abundance. He saw himself radiating a dull gray, dimming his creations. A voice whispered, "Choose your color consciously. You are the designer of your signature." When he woke, Mirek began experimenting. Each morning, instead of drowning in frustration, he sat quietly and visualized golden light radiating from his chest. He whispered, "I am seen. I am worthy. My art carries life." He infused this energy into his brushstrokes. Soon his paintings seemed to glow with vitality. Patrons who once overlooked him began to stop, drawn not only by the skill of his hand, but by the resonance of his being. The teaching is this: consciousness is vibration. Your life reflects your energy signature more than your effort. Problems arise when your signature unconsciously radiates fear, doubt, or lack. When you consciously design it, reality must mirror it back. The practice. Each morning, choose your frequency. Sit quietly, place your hands on your heart, and visualize light radiating outward. Say, "I embody abundance. I radiate love. I carry peace." Feel it until your entire being hums with the frequency. Then step into your day as a living transmitter of your chosen energy. Mirek's reputation grew not only as a painter but as a presence. People claimed his art healed them, not by images alone but by the frequency it carried. He realized his true canvas was not only his painting but his energy itself. And so the wisdom endures. You are the designer of your energy signature. Shape it with intention, and the world cannot help but respond in kind. Problems dissolve because the frequency that birthed them no longer exists. Chapter 28. The Synchronicity Orchestrator. In the city of Calvis, a young musician named Seren struggled to find her way. She played her lute beautifully, but audiences were scarce and opportunities fewer still. Each day she searched for direction, yet the harder she pushed, the more lost she felt. One night, sitting beneath the stars, she whispered, "If life cares for me, let it show me." The following morning, she walked through the market. A stranger brushed past, humming the very melody she had composed in secret the night before. Her heart raced. Was it coincidence? Later that day, she stumbled upon a poster announcing a gathering of musicians. At the gathering, she met a patron who would later transform her career. Seren began to notice more signs, numbers repeating on clocks, chance encounters answering her unspoken questions. songs on the wind carrying messages for her heart. She realized life was not silent at all. It was orchestrating synchronicities, weaving a hidden symphony that guided her. At first she doubted, but the patterns grew undeniable. When she asked whether to travel, she dreamed of ships. The next day, a sailor offered her passage. When she wondered whether to continue her music, a child tugged her sleeve in the square and said, "Please play." Each sign arrived with uncanny precision, as though life itself was composing a melody around her. She began to trust. Instead of forcing plans, she asked for guidance and stayed alert for the signs. Problems that once overwhelmed her now dissolved into synchronicity. When she lost her purse, a friend returned it before she even searched. When her lute broke, a craftsman appeared who had dreamed of making an instrument just for her. The teaching is this: synchronicity is not random. It is the orchestrated language of the deeper field of consciousness, aligning outer events with inner resonance. Problems dissolve when you stop forcing solutions and allow life's orchestration to reveal the next step. The practice. When uncertain, ask life for a sign. State your intention clearly, then remain open. Notice repeating patterns, symbols, or unusual encounters. Do not dismiss them. Synchronicity speaks in whispers, not shouts. Trust its timing, for it arrives precisely when needed. Seren's music grew radiant, infused with the wonder of her journey. She no longer doubted whether life cared for her. She felt it in every note, every chance meeting, every unfolding event. Audiences grew, but more importantly, her heart lived in harmony with the unseen conductor of existence. And so the wisdom endures. Synchronicity is life's symphony. When you learn to listen, every problem becomes part of the song, dissolving into the orchestration of a greater design. Chapter 29, The Master Key Holder. In the kingdom of Avaris, legends spoke of a vault said to contain treasures beyond imagination. Many had searched for the key but failed, for the vault seemed impenetrable. Among the seekers was a scholar named Joran, who studied endlessly. He believed that if he learned enough secrets, he would eventually unlock the door. Years passed, and still the vault remained sealed. Frustrated, Joran journeyed to a hermit in the mountains, said to hold wisdom older than the kingdom itself. The hermit listened and then handed him a small mirror. "Here is the master key." Joran stared. "A mirror? This cannot open the vault." The hermit replied, "You do not understand. The vault is not outside you. It is your own consciousness, and the key has always been in your hands. You are both the lock and the key." That night, Joran dreamed of the vault. He approached the door, holding the mirror. As he raised it, the door dissolved. Inside was not gold or jewels, but a radiant light, infinite and eternal. He awoke in awe, realizing the master key was awareness itself. From then on, he no longer sought external answers. When problems arose, he turned inward. He discovered that by shifting his state of consciousness, obstacles dissolved. What once seemed impossible opened effortlessly. He saw clearly that he was not a powerless seeker, but the master key holder. The truth is this: consciousness itself is the key. All techniques, practices, and stories point to the same truth, that you already hold within you the power to unlock reality. Problems persist when you forget this and search outside. They dissolve when you remember your nature as the source. The practice. When faced with difficulty, pause and turn inward. Say, "I am the key." The answer is within. Feel your awareness expand until the problem becomes small within its vastness. From this recognition, solutions arise naturally, for the lock was never real, only forgotten truth. Joran returned to Avaris not with treasure, but with presence. People came to him with their troubles, and instead of answers, he reminded them of their own key. "Look within," he would say. "The vault opens when you remember who you are." And so the wisdom endures. You are the master key holder. You are not separate from the lock nor from the treasure. When you awaken to this, problems dissolve into the radiant truth of your own infinite being. Chapter 30. The Awakened Dreamer's Graduation. In the valley of Alindra, seekers gathered from far and wide to study under a sage named Melis. For years, she taught them the principles of consciousness, the mirror of life, the power of attention, the portals of possibility. They practiced diligently, dissolving their problems and awakening to deeper truths. One by one, her students approached her asking, "When will we complete the journey? When will we graduate from your teaching?" Melis smiled gently. Graduation is not the end of learning, but the recognition that you are the dreamer of it all. To illustrate, she told them a story. A man dreamed each night that he wandered a labyrinth, searching for a door. He believed he was trapped. One night he stopped running and realized he was the dreamer. The labyrinth dissolved instantly, and he walked free. So it is with you. That night, the students dreamed together. They found themselves walking the same labyrinth, each corner leading to another problem. Yet, as they remembered the sage's words, they paused. One by one, they awakened inside the dream. The walls fell away, and they stood together in an open field, filled with light. When they awoke, they wept with joy. They understood at last. They were not students waiting for completion, but creators of their own reality. The practices they had learned were not steps to freedom, but reminders of the freedom they already possessed. The truth is this: mastery is not reaching a final stage, but realizing there was never a barrier. You are the awakened dreamer, the consciousness that creates all experience. Problems dissolve because you recognize they were only constructs within the dream. The practice. Each day, live as the dreamer. When challenges arise, see them as dream symbols, opportunities for awakening. Say inwardly, "I am the dreamer, not the dream. I choose what to create." Live from this recognition, and your reality becomes a continuous ceremony of creation. The seekers of Alindra celebrated their graduation, not with certificates or titles, but with freedom. They dispersed across the land, carrying light wherever they went. And though they left the sage, they carried her final teaching within. You are not here to master the code. You are here to remember that you are the coder. And so the wisdom concludes. The awakened dreamer walks not in search of answers, but in recognition of their own infinite power. Life becomes art, problems dissolve into play, and the dreamer rejoices in the endless dance of creation.